Coming up, hidden rooms in temples, metal detecting dreams come true, seabed scores, and more. Join us as we have a look at some of the best treasure hunting tales ever. Sree. Temples have always received the alms of the wealthy because, well, the rich are often concerned about the afterlife, having done so well here on Earth. It would be in 2011 that the Indian Supreme Court would direct authorities from the Archaeological Department to crack open a set of secret vaults. These vaults were hidden chambers that were below the Sree Padmanabhaswamy Temple in Kerala Province. This temple was built in the 16th century by the kings of Travancore to serve as an elite church, and pretty much entirely for the rule of the nation. Naturally, when the collection plates would come around, these guys wouldn't skimp. I mean, it's the afterlife, after all. While this isn't the first time that the Indian archaeological departments have found a huge treasure trove buried in a temple, this one was a little bit bigger than expected. When the dust would settle, the treasure was valued at an alarming 500 billion rupees. Now, in American dollars, that's about 9 billion. Among the unimaginable riches were golden bows, sacks full of diamonds, antique jewelry stuffed with emeralds, 37 pounds of East India Trading Company gold, and a gold necklace that weighed an astounding 5 pounds. This is thought to be the richest temple in India, although not by as wide of a margin as you may think. With the temple in Andhra Pradesh state being valued at 320 billion rupees, there's a world of wealth buried in this subcontinent. Hanumandhoka. When you're doing a rehab on your home, sometimes you can be pleasantly surprised by what you may find. While it's nice to come across one of Grandpa's old paintings or perhaps even a coin collection, this is especially true if your home turns out to be an ancient temple. Laborers in Nepal were renovating a building in the palace complex of Hanumandhoka and came across a very small yet very secret room that no one had thought about in over 300 years. Within the room there were 3 boxes, which may not seem like a whole lot, that is, until you realize that they're jammed with 3 kilograms of gold and 80 kilos of silver ornaments and gems. This mini trove would be unearthed in 2011, and it's believed that it was hidden by the Malla kings who ruled in the century before the unification of Nepal. Hoxney. You see the guy on the beach with his socks and sandals and his metal detector pulling bottle caps out of the sand. He's got his sunglasses on, staring intently at the ground, just willing the earth to divulge its secrets to him from below. Do you ever wonder why guys like him do it? Well, it's stories like these. In 1992, a metal detectorist by the name of Eric Laws was walking in his friend Peter Watling's field looking for a hammer that the farmer had lost the previous day. Oddly enough, we don't know if they ever actually found the hammer, but what they did find was a set of silver spoons, some gold jewelry, and a number of ancient coins. After a handful of these oddities, Laws and Watling did the noble thing, notifying the landowners and the police, rather than going on a crazy treasure hunt digging mission. It may perhaps be their loss, because a team of archaeologists appeared on the scene the next day and carried out what is known as an emergency excavation. Now, that team didn't find a hammer, however, an actual treasure hoard was quickly discovered, consisting of a small chest and other ornate wooden boxes. The coins within these boxes actually date back to when Britain was a Roman province, about 405 AD. Now, it's unknown who actually buried the stash, or even why, but the contents are worth about $7 million and consist of over 14,000 Roman gold coins, along with 200 pieces of jewelry. The treasure is now at the British Museum of London, thanks to the noble thoughts of Laws and Watling. Being a part of national history can be just equally as important as having a stash of treasure to the right person. Now, a similar story would take place in a nearby county as Terry Herbert dusted off his 14-year-old metal detector in England. By 2009, Herbert had been metal detecting for 18 years, and that day he asked a friend if he could walk his fields. For these hobbies, it's important to be consistent, so Herbert had a phrase that he said every day that he went hunting. Quote, "Spirits of yesterday, take me where coins appear." End quote. On that particular day, though, he was swapping the word coins for gold, and it worked out like a charm. That's because he came across a trove that dated back to the 17th century and consisted of 5 kilos of gold and silver. Now, most of the treasure was decorating war paraphernalia. Sword pommels and hilts and small armor pieces were all inlaid with gems and encrusted in gold, making it both a unique and valuable find. In fact, there were over 1,500 pieces in this random field, some of which date back as far as 17th century BCE. This Saxon hoard would be valued at 7 million United States dollars and is now at the Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery. It also serves as a reminder that whenever you're about to go treasure hunting, don't forget to say, well, whatever magic words that you can think of. David Whelan and his son Andrew were also metal detecting in England some 2 years prior to Herbert's discovery, when they came across a Viking treasure trove, known as the Harrogate Hoard because it was found in, well, Harrogate. This treasure consists of over 600 silver coins, along with 65 seemingly random valuable objects, which include precious metal and other ornaments. The chest itself is a beautiful thing of mystery, being lined with silver and covered in gold, displaying a unique and remarkable craftsmanship. Oh, and its obvious wealth. The Vikings, it would seem, were not exactly sneaky about their treasure. The chest was made in France or Germany in about the year 900, and experts claim that the hoard belonged to a Viking noble, and among the ornaments, a very rare gold arm ring, possibly from Ireland. Theories now suggest that the treasure was buried for a wealthy Viking leader who would die during political unrest in 927, and his supporters were worried about thieves and desecration. As it stands, the trove is worth about $4 million. Bradshaw. When you're treasure hunting, it's important to never give up on your dreams and to always trust your instincts. In 2001, Cliff Bradshaw was an amateur archaeologist on a mission. His studies in the area of 400 to 680 Anglo-Saxons would lead him to the countryside that was southeast of Kent in search for remains. While scouring the country and thinking fondly of his future finds, Bradshaw would come across some very rare discoveries. 3 ancient coins, a part of a strap, and a number of brooch fragments were all found in a relatively close proximity to each other, and Bradshaw was incensed. He figured that this had to be more than a random battle or an accidental loss, and also suspected that he'd stumbled upon an actual Saxon settlement, hoping to soon find the burial mound. He had the right idea, but things would get a little bit more confusing from there. With his months in the field, he was able to dig a little deeper and found gilt brooches and a chalice that had been crushed by a plow. Examining the cup more closely would bring a bit of a surprise, as it resembled something from the Neolithic period about 2300 BC. This was far earlier than the treasure that he thought he would come across, and then he threw in the towel. It would be at this point that he notified authorities, and then the hoard was found and bought by the British Museum for $500,000, which was then split between Bradshaw and the landowners. As it turns out, the site was actually a funeral complex for the early Bronze Age. The Cezary Sunken. Despite what you may think, not all of the world's magnificent treasures can be found buried in a field in England. One of the more valuable finds ever discovered was on the seabed near Israel. In 2015, scuba explorers were perplexed when they would find the first gold coin off the harbor of the Cezary National Park and thought that it was a children's toy. Then, when they found 2,000 more of the things, everything got a little bit more intense. 2,000 gold coins is a big day for any scuba diver, and that was before they examined the engravings. The divers called the Israel Antiquities Authority and identified the hoard. As it turns out, the coins were minted across different eras between the 10th and 12th centuries. At the present, the find is actually deemed to be priceless. Bulgaria. Sometimes the treasure that you find offers much more than what meets the eye. Pavel Petko and Mikhail Dikov were adorable brothers from Bulgaria. In 1949, they were digging for clay beside of a tile factory when one of them came across a strange whistle in the dirt. As they then continued to dig, the brothers found more and even stranger objects. At this point, one of them came up with the thought that it was time to involve the mayor. The brothers then transported the items to the local authorities and realized that everything that they had found was actually made out of solid gold. Oh, and there was more in the pit. Much, much more. The strange whistle was actually a ceremonial drinking horn, and that horn dated all the way back to the 4th century BCE. In total, the brothers found over 13 pounds of solid gold that would be carved into unique and interesting shapes, all handcrafted and all intricately designed. Even today, the treasure is considered priceless beyond measure. The Tilya Tepe. The treasure that was found at Tilya Tepe has been called the Bactrin gold, and it consists of the contents of 6 burial mounds. This is some really old gold, dating back to the 1st century BCE. The mounds would be discovered in the late 1970s, and due to the invasion of Afghanistan, the treasure has changed hands a number of times. The treasure itself is actually the collection of a nomadic prince and his 5 wives, and the trove shows that he actually got around. That's because the loot contains objects from various countries like China, India, and Greece, and is of dates that range over 200 years. It's clear by looking at the treasure that the prince was a collector. There are precious stones set into many of the gold ornaments, and the colors are absolutely stunning. What's also stunning, though, is that the collection has more than 20,000 gold ornaments in it. Talk about being buried in style. As a whole, the treasure is one of the largest and most diverse that's ever been found, and due to the unrest and wars between its discovery and the present day, parts of it are shown in multiple museums all over the world. Naturally, a trove of this size is interesting and can't be monetarily quantified, and so the Bactrin gold is priceless. Nicolas Cage and Johnny Depp have made a living off of playing characters that search for long-lost treasure throughout the world. But have you ever wondered how much truth there is to some of their tales? You may be surprised to find out that on more than one occasion, there have been many who were slightly careless when it came to remembering where they placed their hidden riches. Join us as we have a look at some of the lost treasures from around the world.